Hey, amazing viewers! Before we go into this riveting narrative, drop your location in the comments below. We love connecting with you all around the world. Also, if this is your first time here, press the subscribe button and join our incredible journey. Let's hit 10,000 subscribers this month together. Your support means everything. The gift that changed everything. It was supposed to be a perfect morning. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as I sat at the wooden dining table, meticulously reviewing the financial reports for my beauty salons. Owning and managing Serenity Beauty Spa had been my dream since I was a young stylist working late shifts to make ends meet. Now, with 3 thriving locations across Greenwich, Connecticut, I had built something I was proud of, something that gave me purpose. Outside, the golden maple leaves swayed in the crisp autumn air. The sun peeked through the curtains, casting soft shadows on the white walls of our home. It was a peaceful moment, but peace never lasted long. "Mom, how does my hair look?" I turned to see my 10-year-old daughter, Emma, standing in front of the large mirror in the hallway, flashing her innocent, dimpled smile. She had my brown hair, though hers fell in soft, natural waves down to her shoulders. She was already nearly as tall as me, growing up faster than I was ready for. "It looks lovely, sweetheart," I replied, smiling warmly. "Did Jessica braid it for you?" Jessica, one of my senior stylists, had always adored Emma, treating her like family. The salon was like a second home to my daughter. She had practically grown up there, surrounded by the scent of lavender shampoos and the hum of blow dryers. Just as Emma twirled in place to admire her hair, Michael, my husband, walked into the room, straightening his tie. His black-rimmed glasses sat perfectly on the bridge of his nose, and his posture was as composed as ever. He had always been like this, meticulous, well-organized, a man of routine. Recently promoted at his investment advisory firm, he had been working longer hours, but he never failed to be present for the big moments. "Will you be back home on time tonight?" he asked, his voice carrying the usual calm authority. "I should be back by 6, I assured him. Today was special. We were hosting a birthday party for Emma, inviting our neighbors, her closest friends, and of course, family, including my mother-in-law, Barbara Smith. Barbara was a woman who commanded attention the moment she entered a room. A former high school teacher from a well-off family, she dressed in nothing but high-end brands and spoke with a polished, almost rehearsed elegance. To the outside world, she was the picture of grace and intellect. But behind closed doors, she was controlling, critical, and deeply judgmental of me. She had never approved of my career. To her, a beauty salon was beneath the social status of her son, and she had made it clear from the beginning of our marriage that she would have preferred me to be a stay-at-home wife. Over the years, I had learned to tolerate her, maintaining a superficial politeness when we crossed paths at Whole Foods or attended the First Presbyterian Church together. Yet, if there was one thing that softened Barbara's cold demeanor, it was her granddaughter, Emma. She adored Emma, perhaps a little too much. Recently, her behavior had changed. She had started spending more time with Emma, taking her on extravagant shopping trips, giving her gifts that were far too expensive for a child. Just last week, she had taken Emma to a luxury department store, returning with a designer handbag that a 10-year-old had no business owning. I had dismissed it as overindulgence, but deep down, I felt something was off. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, her voice quieter now. "Grandma's been acting weird lately." I froze. Something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" I asked, setting down my coffee cup. Emma hesitated. For a brief moment, her usual bright expression faltered. Then, just as quickly, she shook her head and mumbled, "It's nothing." Before I could press further, she grabbed her school bag and hurried off to get ready for the party. I should have asked more questions. I should have paid attention to that flicker of fear in her eyes. But at the time, I had no idea that our lives were about to be turned upside down. The party that changed everything. By the time 3 p.m. rolled around, the party was in full swing. The backyard of our colonial-style home was decorated with balloons and fairy lights, and the scent of grilled burgers filled the air. Children laughed as they played tag across the lawn, and parents gathered around the patio, sipping lemonade and wine. Michael was at the grill, flipping burgers with his best friend Tom, while our neighbor Jennifer helped me arrange the dessert table. "Need any help?" she asked, balancing a tray of homemade cupcakes. "Just keep me sane," I joked, setting the pink birthday cake at the center of the table. The number 10 candle was waiting in its box, ready to be placed on top. Across the yard, Emma was on the swing set with her best friends Kate and Sarah, giggling as the golden sunlight reflected in her hair. Everything seemed perfect. And then Barbara arrived. She walked through the garden gates with pristine elegance, her gray bob perfectly styled, her channel dress tailored to perfection. In one hand, she held a luxury shopping bag. Emma ran to her immediately. "Grandma." Barbara's face lit up as she kissed her granddaughter's forehead. "Happy birthday, my darling. I have something very special for you." I didn't know why, but a cold unease crept up my spine. The gift that didn't feel right. The party went on. Conversations flowed. Laughter filled the air. Then, at 5 p.m., it was time for cake. We gathered around as I lit the candles. "Make a wish, sweetheart," I whispered. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, made her wish, and blew out the flames. The crowd cheered. Then came the presents. Barbara was the first to step forward. "Emma, my dear," she said, her voice warm yet expectant, "this is for you." She handed over a deep red box, its velvet exterior adorned with an elegant gold logo. Emma hesitated. I watched as she slowly lifted the lid, only for a collective gasp to ripple through the adults. Inside sat an exquisite pink gold watch, encrusted with small diamonds, clearly worth a small fortune. It was too much, too extravagant. Emma's expression darkened. "I don't want to wear it," she said, her voice quiet yet firm. A silence fell over the party. Barbara's smile did not fade. If anything, it became eerily calm. "Why not?" Michael asked, sounding slightly taken aback. "Your grandmother picked this out just for you." Emma lowered her gaze, gripping the hem of her dress. I don't want it." And then, without another word, she turned and ran inside. Something was wrong. I had no idea what, but as I watched Barbara's carefully neutral expression, I felt it deep in my bones. This wasn't just about a watch. It was about something much bigger. And I was about to find out the hard way. Secrets beneath the surface. The moment Emma ran inside, I knew something was wrong. My daughter wasn't the type to throw tantrums or act spoiled. She had been raised to appreciate kindness, to say thank you even if she didn't like a gift. But tonight, her reaction was different. It wasn't just discomfort, it was fear. And that terrified me. The guests shifted uncomfortably, trying to mask their confusion. Some of the other children, unaware of the tension, had already gone back to playing. But the adults, Michael, Barbara, and our closest neighbors, were left standing in an awkward silence. Michael cleared his throat, looking between me and his mother. "I'll go check on her," he said before stepping inside. I remained frozen, my hands gripping the edge of the dessert table. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Barbara. She wasn't watching Michael go after Emma. She wasn't even pretending to look concerned. Instead, she simply smoothed her channel dress, placed her now empty luxury shopping bag on a chair, and took a slow sip of her wine. Her expression was unreadable. And that's when I realized she had expected this. She knew. The question was, what did she know that I didn't? A mother's instinct. For the rest of the party, Barbara remained composed and indifferent, but my anxiety was growing by the second. Emma never came back outside. Michael returned about 10 minutes later, his expression unreadable. "She says she's just tired," he told me quietly. She didn't want to talk. That wasn't like her at all. When we had guests over, Emma was the kind of child who stayed at the center of it all, laughing, playing, enjoying herself. For her to disappear upstairs without a word, something was very wrong. I wanted to run to her immediately, but I also didn't want to cause a scene. This was still her birthday party after all. So I smiled politely, thanked everyone for coming, and kept up appearances. But inside, my mind was racing. By the time the last guest left, and the backyard was quiet again, the weight in my chest was unbearable. I went upstairs to Emma's room, my heartbeat quickening as I knocked gently. "Sweetheart, can I come in?" No answer. I slowly turned the knob and pushed open the door. Emma sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, hugging her stuffed bear. The watch sat beside her on the nightstand, still inside the red velvet box, untouched. She didn't even look up when I walked in. Instead, she said softly, "Mom, I don't want to wear it." I sat down beside her. "That's okay, honey, but can you tell me why?" She hesitated, gripping the bear tighter. Then, almost whispering, she said, "Grandma said I should always keep it on me, so she knows I'm safe." I blinked. That didn't sound so strange at first, but something about the way Emma said it sent a chill through me. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I asked carefully. Emma finally looked up at me, her brown eyes filled with something I rarely saw in her, unease. She kept saying it's very special, that she picked it out just for me, she said slowly. And then she told me to make sure no one takes it away. I frowned. Why would she say that? Emma hesitated again. Then, in a small voice, she added, "She said it was just between us." My stomach dropped. I had always known that Barbara could be controlling, manipulative even. But this was different. This wasn't just about an expensive, inappropriate gift. This was about secrecy. And nothing good ever came from a child being told to keep secrets. The watch that watched. That night, after tucking Emma into bed, I walked downstairs, the red box clutched in my hands. Michael was still in the backyard, cleaning up after the party. I could see him through the kitchen window, talking with Tom, but I didn't care about that right now. I placed the box on the kitchen counter, staring at it. Barbara had always been overbearing, but why a watch? It wasn't like her to shower Emma with gifts just for the sake of spoiling her. She prided herself on being old-fashioned, believing that children should earn what they receive. So why did she insist on Emma wearing this watch? I reached into the box and lifted it carefully. It was heavier than I expected. For a child's watch, it felt wrong. The pink gold shimmered in the dim kitchen light, and the small diamonds embedded in the face sparkled like something out of a luxury boutique catalog. Then I turned it over, and my breath caught in my throat. Something was off about the back panel. Most watches have smooth, seamless back covers, but this one, there was a tiny slit, a barely noticeable gap. My pulse quickened. Suddenly, I remembered something. A few months ago, one of my clients, Lena, whose husband was a tech specialist, had been venting about how her husband had found a tiny recording device hidden inside a fake piece of jewelry that someone had given her niece. My heart started pounding. No, this was crazy. Barbara was strict, opinionated, and judgmental, but she wasn't. She wouldn't. Would she? With shaking hands, I grabbed a butter knife from the kitchen drawer and gently pried at the slit on the back of the watch. It popped open, and I saw it. A tiny electronic device, embedded neatly into the inner panel. I felt my stomach turn to ice. This wasn't just a watch. This was a listening device. The call that changed everything. For several seconds, I just stood there, staring, disbelieving. But the truth was right in front of me. Barbara had given my daughter a tracking and recording device and had specifically told her to keep it a secret. My hand shook as I grabbed my phone. I didn't hesitate. I dialed 911. Greenwich Police Department. What's your emergency? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. I found a listening device in the watch my daughter received for her birthday, I said. And I think my mother-in-law planted it. There was a pause. Then the dispatcher's voice turned serious. Ma'am, I'm sending officers to your location immediately. Please do not tamper with the device any further. I hung up, my hands still trembling. My heart was racing, but my mind was clear now. This wasn't just about a controlling mother-in-law. This was about invasion of privacy. This was about protecting my child. And I wasn't about to let anyone, family or not, violate that trust. The truth hidden in the shadows. The house felt eerily silent as I stood in the kitchen, my fingers clenched tightly around my phone. A cold sweat broke across my skin as the weight of what I had just discovered sank in. Barbara had given Emma a listening device disguised as a gift. A luxury watch, laced with secrets. A tracking tool meant to spy on my daughter, and by extension, me. My hands trembled as I set the device back onto the counter, the tiny electronic components mocking me under the dim kitchen light. Why would she do this? What the hell was she listening for? Before I could spiral further, a voice snapped me back to reality. Carol. Michael's voice echoed from the backyard. I saw him through the window, wiping his hands on a dish towel as he stepped into the kitchen. His black-rimmed glasses sat slightly askew, and he looked tired, oblivious, and entirely unaware of the storm that had just hit our home. I took a deep breath. I had two choices: wait for the police and let them handle it. Let Michael find out through an investigation, through cold, hard evidence. Tell him now, confront him about his mother, and risk him defending her before he even understood the full weight of what had happened. I chose the second option. Michael, I said, my voice tighter than I intended. We need to talk. He frowned, setting down the dish towel. What's wrong? I swallowed. It's about the watch. The one your mother gave Emma. At first, he didn't seem to understand. His eyes drifted to the box on the counter, the watch still shining under the kitchen lights. The watch. What about it? I hesitated, then grabbed the butter knife and pried open the back of the watch again, revealing the hidden device inside. Michael's eyes widened. What the hell is that? I exhaled shakily. It's a listening device, Michael. It's a damn bug. His entire body stiffened. No, that doesn't make any sense, he muttered, stepping closer. He grabbed the watch from my hand, inspecting the small wires embedded inside. His face twisted in disbelief. Michael, I said softly, your mother told Emma to never take it off, to never tell us about it. He didn't speak. She knew, I pressed. She knew exactly what she was doing. Michael's jaw clenched. No, that's... He cut himself off, running a frustrated hand through his hair. His first instinct was to deny it. I knew this. He had spent his whole life believing in the perfect version of his mother, the well-dressed, sophisticated woman who prided herself on raising a respectable family. But now, he was staring at undeniable evidence that she had gone too far. This has to be a mistake, he said, but his voice wasn't confident anymore. It was more like he was trying to convince himself. Michael, I said, stepping closer. I called the police. His head snapped up. You what? They're on their way, I said firmly. This isn't something we can ignore. Michael stared at me, then back at the watch, his breathing unsteady. Then we heard it, the distinct sound of police sirens approaching our house. A knock at the door. Within minutes, the front doorbell rang. I hurried to answer it, my pulse hammering in my ears. Two uniformed officers stood outside, their expressions serious. The taller one, Detective Avery, flashed his badge. Mrs. Thompson, he asked. I nodded. We'd received your report regarding a possible listening device. May we come in? Yes, please, I said, stepping aside. The officers entered, their eyes scanning the room with trained caution. Michael still stood frozen in the kitchen, his hands gripping the counter as if grounding himself. I guided the officers toward the kitchen, where the watch sat on the counter, its ugly secret exposed. Detective Avery studied it carefully before looking at me. "You found this in your daughter's gift?" "Yes," I said. "My mother-in-law gave it to her this afternoon during her birthday party. She insisted Emma wear it all the time." The second officer, a woman named Detective Langley, scribbled notes onto a small notepad. "Did she say anything suspicious when giving the gift?" I hesitated. "She told Emma that she needed to always have it on, and that she shouldn't tell anyone." Detective Avery's brow furrowed deeply. "That's highly unusual." Michael, still pale, finally spoke up. "Are you sure it's an actual listening device?" His voice wavered. Langley reached into her equipment bag and pulled out a small handheld scanner. She held it close to the watch, and immediately, a faint beeping sound filled the room. Avery exhaled. "It's active." Michael flinched. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "This is serious," Avery continued. "It's illegal to place a covert listening device in someone's home, especially when it involves a child. We're going to need to question your mother-in-law." Michael opened his mouth, then closed it. I could see the war in his mind. His love for his mother versus the horrifying truth of what she had done. But he couldn't argue with facts. Finally, he nodded. "Okay." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Okay." The call to Barbara. I stood next to Michael as he pulled out his phone and dialed Barbara's number. It rang twice before she answered. "Michael, dear," she greeted sweetly. "I was just about to call you." "Mom," he cut in, his voice sharper than I had ever heard it. "We need to talk." A slight pause. Then a calm chuckle. "Oh, Michael, whatever is the matter? Is Emma enjoying her gift?" Michael gritted his teeth. "Don't play dumb. We know what you did." Another pause. This one longer. Then Barbara spoke, her voice smoother than ever. "I see," she murmured. "So, she found it." I felt my blood turn to ice. No denial. No confusion. Just cold, calculated acknowledgement. Michael's face darkened. "Mom, you bugged my daughter's gift. That's illegal." "What were you thinking?" A sigh. "Michael, you don't understand." "No," he snapped. "I don't understand." "So tell me, Mom. Why?" Silence. Then, Barbara's voice dropped to a whisper. "I was protecting her." The room felt suddenly suffocating. Michael's grip on the phone tightened. "Protecting her? From what?" Barbara inhaled sharply. "From you, Carol." My breath caught in my throat. Michael's entire body went rigid. Detective Avery exchanged glances with Langley, both of them immediately more alert. I felt my stomach twist. What the hell was Barbara talking about? Why would she say that? What did she know that we didn't? And more importantly, what had she been listening for? Lies, deception, and the truth unraveled. The words hit me like a train. "From you, Carol." Barbara's voice echoed in my head, repeating like a broken record. What the hell was she talking about? Michael's grip on the phone was tight, his knuckles white. His expression had darkened, shifting from shock to anger in a matter of seconds. "Mom," he said slowly, trying to keep his voice steady. "What the hell do you mean by that?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, Barbara sighed, her voice eerily calm, as if she had already prepared for this moment. "Michael, I never wanted to involve the police," she murmured. "I only wanted to make sure Emma was safe." "Safe from what?" he snapped. Barbara hesitated. "From Carol." The kitchen fell into silence. Detective Avery and Detective Langley exchanged a look, both of them suddenly much more interested in the call. Langley subtly adjusted the volume on her recording device, capturing every word. I felt my pulse quicken. "Excuse me." I finally spoke, my voice cold as ice. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Barbara?" She took a slow, deliberate breath. Then she said, "Michael, your wife is hiding something." And I've been trying to protect Emma from it. Michael stiffened beside me. His fingers twitched as if he wanted to crush the phone in his hand. Mom, that's ridiculous. Carol is a great mother. What are you even talking about? Barbara chuckled lightly. Oh, Michael, you're so naive. I could feel my blood boiling. Listen to me, Barbara continued, her voice turning eerily soothing, like a snake coiling around its prey. I had no choice but to take matters into my own hands. I had to make sure my granddaughter wasn't being put in danger. How the hell would Emma be in danger with me? I snapped. I've taken care of her, loved her, and protected her since the day she was born. I have never done anything to hurt her. Are you sure about that? Barbara mused. I froze. Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist into knots. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement. And she sounded so damn sure of herself. Michael was visibly shaking now. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes as if trying to steady himself. Mom, he said, his voice dangerously low, if you know something, you better say it. Because right now, you sound completely insane. Barbara exhaled sharply. I have proof, Michael. Every muscle in my body tensed. Proof of what? I asked, barely able to keep my voice from shaking. Another pause. Then, Barbara finally said, check the email I sent you, Michael. Michael blinked. What? I sent you an email earlier today. I wasn't going to show it to you yet, but given the situation. Her voice trailed off. It's best you see it now. Michael pulled his phone away from his ear, his hand shaking as he unlocked it. His brows furrowed as he tapped his email app, scrolling down until his entire body went still. He had found it. A message from Barbara, with the subject line, "The truth about Carol." His breathing became ragged. Slowly, he clicked it open. I leaned closer, my stomach in knots as I peeked at the screen. There was an attachment, a video file. Michael hesitated only for a moment before tapping it. And then, our world shattered. The video that changed everything. A grainy security footage began playing. At first, I didn't recognize the location. But then my heart stopped. It was from inside my salon. I saw myself in the video, standing behind the counter, talking to someone. A man. I frowned. What is this supposed to be? Barbara's voice came through the speaker. Keep watching. Michael did. The footage was from a month ago. I was standing in my salon, speaking to a tall man with graying hair, someone I vaguely recognized. He was one of my older clients, a businessman named James Reynolds. He often came in for scalp treatments, nothing unusual. But in the footage, I saw myself handing him an envelope. A thick envelope. My stomach tightened. Then, James took out a wad of cash from his jacket and placed it on the counter. The footage was silent, but from the way my lips moved, it looked like I was saying, "Thank you." The video cut off. Michael turned to me, his face ashen, his hands trembling. Carol, what is this? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't know what to say. Barbara's voice crackled back through the phone. You've been taking money under the table, haven't you, Carol? Secret transactions, large sums of cash, with no records in your accounting books. My vision blurred. No, this was wrong. This wasn't what it looked like. Michael, I gasped, shaking my head frantically. I can explain. Explain. Barbara interrupted, her voice sickeningly sweet. How do you explain this, Carol? Accepting large amounts of money behind your husband's back, hiding transactions, and don't try to lie. I checked your financial records. That money never went through your business account. Michael's face fell. His lips parted as if trying to say something, but no words came out. Michael, I pleaded, reaching for his hand, but he flinched away. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes. It wasn't true. Not the way Barbara was making it seem. Yes, I had received money from James Reynolds, But it wasn't for illegal business. It was for something else. Something that I never told Michael about. And now, that secret was coming back to destroy me. "Michael," I whispered, my voice breaking. "You have to believe me. I would never do anything to hurt you, or Emma." Michael's jaw clenched. Barbara's voice came through the speaker one last time. Soft, triumphant, and laced with venom. "You see now, don't you, Michael?" she whispered. Then she hung up, and the silence that followed was deafening. The reckoning. The silence stretched between us like an ocean, vast, suffocating, and impossible to cross. Michael stared at me, his black-rimmed glasses slightly askew, his expression unreadable. I could see the battle raging behind his eyes, the struggle between trusting his wife and believing the evidence laid out before him. The grainy video was still open on his phone. The email from his mother still lingered at the top of his inbox. And the bugged watch, the twisted symbol of Barbara's betrayal, sat motionless on the kitchen counter, as if waiting to see how the night would end. "Michael," I whispered, "please." My voice cracked. He swallowed, running a hand through his hair, his breath ragged. "Tell me the truth, Carol," he said, his voice low, almost trembling. "Tell me why my mother has a video of you taking money in secret. Tell me what the hell is going on." I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to stop shaking. I owed him the truth. But the truth would change everything. I closed my eyes for a moment, then finally met his gaze. "Michael," I said, "that money, it wasn't what Barbara thinks it was." "Then what was it?" His voice was tight, his patience unraveling. I hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, I said the words that had been weighing on my soul for months. "It was for Emma." Michael's brows furrowed. "What?" I clenched my fists, trying to steady myself. "Emma has a medical condition," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I found out months ago, but I didn't tell you because I knew you'd panic, and I didn't want to worry you until I had all the answers." Michael's entire body went rigid. "What are you talking about?" I swallowed hard. "Emma has a rare genetic disorder. Nothing life-threatening, but something that requires expensive treatments. Treatments that aren't covered by insurance. And my voice broke. I didn't want to drain our savings, so I made a deal." Michael's face paled. I continued. "James Reynolds, he isn't just a client, Michael. He's an investor. He owed me a favor. Years ago, before I even met you, I helped his wife when she was struggling to find work. I never asked for anything in return, but when I found out about Emma's condition, I exhaled shakily. I asked for help." Michael stared at me, his expression frozen between shock and pain. You lied to me." Tears blurred my vision. "I didn't lie to you, Michael. I was protecting you. I was protecting Emma." He took a step back, his hands running through his hair as he let out a long, shaky breath. "Jesus, Carol." He shook his head. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because I knew how you'd react," I said softly. "I knew you'd feel guilty. I knew you'd blame yourself for not making enough, for not being able to provide everything. And I didn't want that. I didn't want you to carry that weight." Michael's hands trembled. His lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, I thought he might turn away, walk out. But then he didn't. Instead, he took a deep breath. And he looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time that night, I saw understanding in his eyes. Not complete forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. Then his jaw tightened. He turned to the detectives, who had been standing in silence, watching our lives unravel. "My mother," Michael said, his voice steadier now, "planted a listening device in my daughter's watch. She stalked my wife. She invaded our privacy, and she manipulated me." Detective Avery nodded. "Yes, and that's a crime." Michael turned back to me. "We're pressing charges," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a decision. A line drawn between us and Barbara. A final, unbreakable boundary. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Barbara had tried to destroy us. But instead, she had only made us stronger. The fallout. The following week was a blur. Barbara was brought in for questioning. She tried to spin the narrative, tried to claim she was only acting out of concern for Emma's safety. But in the end, the evidence was stacked against her. Michael cut ties with her completely. It wasn't easy, but he chose us. He chose his family over the woman who had controlled his life for so long. And as for Emma, she never wore that watch again. She never even looked at it. But one night, as I was tucking her into bed, she reached out and grabbed my hand. "Mom," she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart." She looked up at me with those big brown eyes, so full of trust. "I knew you weren't bad." My throat tightened. "What do you mean, baby?" "Grandma tried to tell me something bad about you," she admitted. "She kept asking me if you ever acted strange, if you ever lied. She kept telling me that sometimes mommies pretend to love their kids, but they don't really care about them." I felt my chest tighten with fury. "But I didn't believe her," Emma continued softly, "because I know you love me. And I know you always will." Tears slipped down my cheeks as I wrapped my arms around her, holding her tight. "Oh, baby," I whispered, "I love you more than anything in this world." And as I held my daughter close, I knew one thing for certain. Barbara had tried to tear us apart, but in the end, she had only made us unbreakable. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.